In this video, I want to do a little review of how to provide evidence from sources, and then in the next part of this video, we'll look at some good and bad examples of writers doing that. So the main principle for providing evidence from a source is that it must be something specific. So you need to cite one of these three things in order to have something specific: a quote, a number, or a specific example. And I just want to highlight some of the main points about citing each of these three types of specific evidence. Usually when you cite a quote, it's going to be a quote from an expert, and the important thing there is to try to cite the explanation on which the expert's conclusion is based. Sometimes people just cite the conclusion itself in order to show that someone backs them up. But what's more persuasive is if you can cite the explanation, their analysis, that will tell the reader why that conclusion is correct. So when you cite a quote, you want to look for explanations, not just affirmations of your position. With respect to numbers, probably the main thing there is that people tend not to use numbers enough. And by number, we mean statistics or percentages, specific objective categories. And people tend not to use them enough in their essays. So that's an area people can often do more of. And then for specific examples, you want to make sure the example truly is specific. So particular people, a person or a group with a name, right? Someone who is real, that's talked about in the source, not just a general type of person that you kind of are referring to. And usually this happens when you don't have a source. You just say, oh, there's this type of person. Or some people give hypothetical examples. It's not a real person. Those are not as effective as an actual person who is talked about in a source. Similar thing for actual events. It should be a real event that took place at a particular time and place in order for it to be a good example, not just general or recurring events. And you should kind of tell the story of that event from your source. Or just tangible things, right? Which could be objects or even something like media. So you want to make sure the example is specific here. Finally, in addition to providing evidence that's specific, you also need to make sure that your evidence is truly relevant. That means providing evidence that supports the specific claim you make. The problem I see with this is sometimes people just find evidence that's relevant to their topic, but that doesn't support their specific claim. And that's because that's all they found in their research, and they're kind of trying to shoehorn that in to fit a particular claim, even if it doesn't. And that's really the worst thing here from among all the problems we're talking about, is when your evidence isn't even relevant. So make sure the evidence supports your specific claim. And if you can't find evidence to support a specific claim, then you probably shouldn't be making that claim. All right, so the important things here are, when we're trying to provide specific evidence, we want a quote, a number, or a specific example, and we want to make sure that that evidence is relevant to the claim. And in the next part of this video, we'll be looking at some good and bad examples of writers trying to provide that kind of evidence.